Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to today's webinar. I'm Lauren Perry. I'm Operations Manager at Syngap Research Fund. The purpose of today's webinar is to discuss fundraising strategies and ideas. SRF is a nonprofit, and our programs run on donations from many different sources. Today, I have the pleasure of introducing three lovely ladies who've really stepped up and raised funds for SRF. First, we have Suzanne Jones. She's mom to Jansen down in Atlanta. She's hosted two successful soirees and other online fundraisers. And Suzanne's also chairwoman of SRF's board of directors. And we have Nancy Kessler, who's sister to our oldest known Syngapian, Karen Lieb, and she's an all-around lovely person. Nancy is a former SRF board director. She hosts an annual gala in New Jersey, and this year it is her fourth. And we have Miss Julie Miles. She's mom to Miller and two other sweet babies in South Carolina, excuse me. Julie serves on SRF's board as well and hosts her own annual Syngap Scramble golf tournament. We also have Miss Jessica Bell, who works on the fundraising team at SRF, and of course, Mike Ralia. He's SRF's managing director. So I'll turn it over to Mike to say hey.
Thank you very much. That was a nice, short and sweet introduction. This is a really important webinar because these three ladies, Suzanne, Nancy, and Julie, are the ones who took the call and set up a fundraiser. And I'm really excited to hear from them about their journeys and what they've learned doing it. I think this is going to be super valuable. So with that, I want to just ask each one to quickly describe what it is that what their events are for people who aren't familiar. I think that might be the best way to kick it off. Nancy, do you want to go first since you're the OG?
Sure. Okay, so the fundraiser that I've been working with is in New Jersey, and it's pretty much a lot of New Jersey, New York, Pennsylvania people come to it, and further, a lot further too. But it's a dinner and dance, and we have guest speakers. We have it started as a dinner to get families together. We wanted to make connections, and it turned into be a fundraiser. We have gone 4 years now, which is great. Every year our population increases, so we're really excited about that. The most important thing is we have a lot of Syngap families that gather and come to it, and also that we've raised funds. We've raised close to, I think, 250,000 in 3 years.
That's awesome. And I think in addition to raising money, the community building has been pretty remarkable, right?
Yes, and spreading awareness. Like the community didn't even know what Syngap was, and now they do. Everybody does, or where I live and in the area, which is really neat. But the community gathering is just really important. People are making connections.
I love it. I love it. We'll come back to that. There's so much to talk about yours. And then I think the next one was the Julie Miles Scramble. Am I right?
I believe so. This is our third year to do this scramble. And we moved to South Carolina from Louisiana and live on a beautiful golf course. And we're not golfers, which is really unique because we didn't really know what we were getting ourselves into. But we had a lot of help from members in our neighborhood who really encouraged us to do a golf scramble because they're pretty easy to put on. And so in 2022, we heard another Syngap family in South Carolina. We got with them and did the first scramble for Syngap. And we have since moved to locations to a new course this year, but it's raised, I think we've raised about 60 or 70,000 over the last 2 years. So while the number is not quite as high as the other two ladies' events, the scramble is it's a lot more, it's easier to get together. It's a lot of fun. And what's really special about our event, I feel like it's pretty intimate with our golfers because we only have 80 that's where we max out. So we really get a chance to talk with them and tell them about Syngap and get to bring our kids around on the golf course, and get them really involved. And it's just a really special event because it's small and intimate. So we've had a lot of fun doing it.
Suzanne?
And I just to tap into both of them, I feel like they're all different kinds of fundraisers you can have. And one of the things that each of us has asked ourselves is, what is your purpose around this fundraising initiative? And like Julie was saying, one of her key purposes is to have an intimate event where people are learning a lot about Syngap. And one of Nancy's top agenda items is to really connect community in the Syngap realm and also spread awareness. And I think really looking at Nancy's event, I decided to copycat here in Atlanta, and I decided to get as much bang for my buck as I could. So to try and have the largest gala I could. So not necessarily intimately connecting with people, but it's true here in Atlanta as well. Everybody who knows me or knows of me also knows the word Syngap now. And so I had a gala and dinner dance, an auction event like Nancy for 2 years. I'm taking this year off because it is a lot of work, and I'm also trying to manage my 3 kids and board chair. So I'm also always thinking about other ways to fundraise because there's all these different options. And the first year I was with SRF, I did an online fundraiser, which I think a lot of other new families try their best to engage in. And I think it's an amazing way to reach out to people. And I'm hoping to do that again this year. And when I did that, and when I want to do it again this year, I looked to email and also to social media to connect with people. And then when I had my first event, I went back to all those emails and I dumped them into, a spreadsheet in terms of figuring out who I'm going to connect with. And my events have raised, over the 2 years, we've netted probably 600,000. And that is not because of me. It's because I was able to tap into 2 networks. One, other Syngap families in the Atlanta area who aren't even necessarily that involved with SRF because they don't have the time and bandwidth, but they have their own ability to help out for a smaller event. And they also have their own list of connections that they gave to me. And then also my friends. Nobody has unlimited time, but my friends were helping me some, and they also gave me their personal connection lists. So when I showed up at an event with more than 300 people, I didn't even know them all, but that was okay because they learned about Jansen and they learned about Syngap. So there's a lot of ways to do this, but for me, it was thinking about how can I make this as big as possible, bigger than I am. That's what I wanted. So.
Awesome. You're muted, Mike.
Sorry, I'm so bad at the mute button. I know we have a rough outline for this, and I know I'm ignoring it, but this is life. I mean, what I think I've talked to each of you and what I've said to a lot of families is just have the first event. The first event is so much work. Like, get the first one out of your system. And as long as you don't lose money, we're good. Like, I mean, it's a weird thing to say about a fundraiser, but like, just please do the first one and like build the plane. And then the year after that and the year after that, these things just grow. They grow with the community, they grow with your friends, they grow with, various angels who show up and help support your group. I mean, I think you can all think of your respective angels, and then I say, really, in addition to raising money, which is important, right? SRF is all funds raised from families. We have given about $6 million to date. And if you just look at the 3 of you on the screen, you're $1 million of that, right? So that's a huge, that's a slice of what SRF has done in the past year, just the 3 of you. And each of these events is teaching SRF how to do these events, is giving us a playbook, and is growing your communities. But the thing I say that I want everyone to understand about every fundraiser, no matter how big or small, whether it's one of these events or whether it's a much bigger, or the Sprint for Syngap, is you're building awareness of Syngap and of your loved ones specifically in your community. And that I think is really hard to capture. So that's my one word of wisdom. So I would just ask the 3 of you, and then I promise we'll get back to the talking points. What is like the one thing you would, if some family called you and said, I'm thinking about doing a fundraiser, but I'm not sure, blah, 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 and you have the usual conversation, what is the one thing you would want everybody thinking about doing a fundraiser to know based on your experience? And I'll just keep this order. Nancy, Julie, Suzanne.
Okay, sure. Sure. So for me, the important thing was I had never done a fundraiser before. I never knew anything about it. And you don't have to know anything in advance. You don't. You just have to have passion for wanting to make a difference with the Syngap community, with your loved ones, and finding something that you really enjoy doing. Like it might be a pickleball, it might be tennis, it might be a dinner. Like I decided to do the dinner, but you don't have to have experience. You don't have to, you can make it as big, small as you want. There's so many creative ways to raise funds, but you have to jump in with what you feel passionate about and what you enjoy doing.
That's great, Nancy. And I agree with everything that you said. And also, one thing I would add is to really lean into your community, because you never know. Everyone wants to support a cause, I feel like. And I had so many friends who are acquaintances that I just started telling them about Miller and telling them about SRF and Syngap. And they just hopped on the train. I mean, they were all about it. We have gotten so many things just donated, and prizes and gifts and just all kinds of things that we would have never expected, and we would have never gotten if I didn't just open up a conversation. So you really, I'm very extroverted, so I was okay with asking for things. But if you just step out of your comfort zone just a little bit, I think you'll be really surprised at the people that want to help and want to support you. So you really have to just lean into your community. And that helped us sell out our teams and have a successful silent auction our first year. So yeah, I would for sure add that. Don't be afraid to step out and just ask. The worst thing people can tell you is no. And that's okay too, because you'll get a whole lot more yeses than nos, I promise you.
And I guess I'm not sure I'm adding much illuminating, but I would just reiterate, like Mike said, one of the things that helped me alleviate my stress the first year I was going to host my own fundraiser. I'd never hosted one before. I've participated in throwing them, but was when he said, just break even, Suzanne. And I'm like, okay, if I can make sure, and Peter Halliburton helped me with this too, if I can make sure that my costs can more or less be covered by the event ticket or whatever fees I'm charging, then the rest is icing on the cake. And that just took the pressure off that it could be anything I wanted it to be. As long as I broke even. And of course I wanted a whole lot more than that, but that just helped set the stage for me being able to be sure I could be successful. And then with that, somebody reminded me once as well, you don't want this to be too fancy, because if this is too fancy, it looks like you don't need money. So you want it to be nice and pleasant and a fun experience for people. And you can have flowers that your friends have arranged, but you do not need to go above and beyond. You need just a beautiful event that shows and showcases Syngap. And that's all people want to see.
Nice. All right. Now I promise now I will turn to the beautiful list of things you guys told me to talk about. This is a really nice list. I'm really impressed with it. The first thing is setting clear fundraising goals. What do we mean by how clear do you need to be? Are we talking numbers? Are we talking what we just said in terms of the what you are and are not trying to do in the first one? Like what is if these are the words of wisdom you would have, like, you guys want to elaborate on what it means to set clear goals and why that's important?
Okay, so in New Jersey and the New York fundraiser, what we wanted to do the first year is we wanted to make sure we met the minimum amount of people attending that was required by the club. So that was a clear goal. We wanted to make sure that we broke even. That was another clear goal. And then the next year we wanted to raise our attendance by 20%. So we picked that, and that we met that goal. And we wanted to, we wanted to increase how much money we brought in the fundraiser. So every year we actually exceeded our goal, and we set a goal. It's important, I think, to set the goals that are realistic, that you think that you are going to meet. You don't want to say, oh, I'm going to have, a lot of people attend when you know that might not be possible. You need to be realistic. You need to also make sure that your goals include the Syngap community, and they're aligned with what what we're trying to accomplish, that we want those funds to make a difference, and help our Syngapians and help them change their lives.
And just on a high level, I would say, before you jump into anything, you just draft a high level event plan. What is your strategy? Like Nancy said, what are your number of people? What is the type of event, the number of people, and the kind of money you want to bring in? And if you want to think through the money you want to bring in, you also need to get a high level expense sheet, just high level. What do you think you're going to be spending? You need to think about whether or not you want sponsors or donors, and if that's going to be a part of your event, and then create a really high level timeline. Because you want to give yourself enough time to check off all these boxes. And then also decide if you can come up with any volunteers to help you. I will say, in my case, having a co-chair help. It's certainly not as somebody who is it's not their baby, but just having somebody to ping for questions and who can maybe help facilitate in different areas is helpful, depending on how large your event is.
I've had a lot of people ask when to start planning, how far out. Actually, somebody recently that wants to do a golf tournament was curious how long they needed. And us three talked the other night that we feel like a good year is generally a good place to start. The first few months are going to be probably a little slow, but there are a lot of things that I've learned over 3 years now that it has to be done pretty much after this event is done, October 5th. I'll give myself about a week or two, and then I'll start planning for next year, because there's contracts to be signed. There's sponsors that you have to get in a year in advance. And there's just a lot that goes into it. So my best advice is to start early and really start with, like they said, your budget, and then your expenses, and your expectations.
And I think you can cut that in half if it's something smaller. Just depends on exactly how much is going to go into it.
Yeah, I
And
agree.
if it's online, it could be almost immediate too, which is neat.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think the three of you have done a great job of starting with something big and continuing it year on year. But there's nothing stopping you from taking something small and letting it grow over time. And we see all that in Boston, right? The first year, the Tavillas really overdid their sprint for Syngap, and that has become, the Boston sprint for Syngap has become a huge part of that. So starting small or starting with a smaller one is, if that's where your appetite is fine. And with that, Jess, do you want to take us through the smaller fundraiser part?
Yeah, hold on, sorry, I was giving edit access. Yes, so I think that all of these things that ladies are talking about with the smaller or the bigger ones is you do need a lot of time, and you do need to start well in advance. But we're doing like a online fundraiser, a Give Lively type of thing that we get, like the platform that we use. You don't really need to do a lot of planning. You really just need your story and a goal, and your friends and family in your community. And you don't need to have as much of your expectations can be smaller, and your number and your goal can be smaller, and that's okay too. And I think that that's really good for a lot of new families to start with, because they're going through quite a lot. And I think that maybe setting up a year in advance fundraiser might be a little hard for them at that point, but just getting your feet wet and doing something a little bit smaller might be helpful and get you involved with your community and with ours. And I can also
show the website.
What?
Yeah. I was gonna say, you want to show the website real quick?
Yeah, I can just show the website really quick. So we just changed up our fundraising resources website. Here we go. And this gives gives everybody a lot of information about where to start with fundraisers, which ones that we are, what families are doing them, and what like here is Nancy and Julie's events are on here where you can go and look and you can get tickets for it and you can learn about their things. And then it just kind of gives a lot of different tips and tricks. And then here's how to do a birthday fundraiser or a special event on Facebook, because those are really popular with our community, a lot of birthday fundraisers, and it shows you how to do that. And then obviously Sprint for Syngap is one of our biggest annual fundraisers, and that's for anybody can join. It's virtual, you can have your team, and that one is really easy for people to get involved with, and they can start with this one if they're not comfortable doing their own. This is one that everyone can be a part of. That one's really nice. And then the best thing that you could do is go through this list. These are all of the past fundraisers that everyone's done. And you can click on any of them that have the links. You can go to their page and you can kind of learn about them. You can learn about why they did it, who they are, and their stories, which I feel like is really important. And it kind of shows you different ideas of what you can do. There's all sorts of different ideas throughout this, and I think this is a really great place to start for anybody.
Mhm.
And yeah.
Cool. Good job. Thank you. Great. You want me to go ahead? SMART goals.
We also have some questions in here. I don't know if you guys want to wait until the end for these, or
Let's do Q&A at the end. Let's get through the content. And I just want to say that page you just shared is something I've been asking for a while, and I'm really thrilled to see it. So thanks for making it. I think if you're looking for inspiration, go to that page. Like you can see that SRF has been built fundraiser by fundraiser, and it's pretty cool history. And that's not even complete, because that's just as far back as our current system goes. For a while, we used another platform called Salsa Labs, and none of us can figure out where to find those. So there's even more if you go farther back in time. But it's a pretty remarkable testament to the work of a lot of families to bring funds to the science team so that SRF can, and this is not the point of this fundraiser, but donors ask, where's this money going? And it's important to remember that there's an entire team led by PhD scientists who happen to be Syngap parents, who then work with other scientists, look at grants, and figure out where this money needs to go. And it's not like, one family could do that, right? The collective of SRF is raising money, finding where money goes, putting it in places that'll help our kids while building this community and supporting families all at the same time. But the fundraising part is critical. Our ability to raise money is why we have put Syngap on the map. $6 million over the past 5 years has made a massive difference and has elevated Syngap in the eyes of both industry and scientists. That's why we're here, right? Sorry for that little speech, but over to you, Lauren.
Okay. I mean, we talked about I think we already talked about what goals are. Our thing was, idea was like SMART goals, which SMART stands for specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound goals. Just having your plan figured out before you start, or what you want to do. SRF we can help. We're of course here to help. We have a team, we'll have an event guide on that webpage, which kind of gives you ideas of where to start. I know that was actually one of the questions. Like, how do you find location? You set your goals. You start from the beginning. Like I always say, get on Google and start learning how to do stuff. I tell people that all day long, including my kids. We discuss goal alignment. Yeah, how to align fundraising goals with an org's mission. That probably is happening already with the event guide. I don't know.
Right.
What do you guys think?
Yeah, so Jessica is going to be creating and posting a high level budget outline and also a high level event outline. But I mean,
Right.
and a high level budget outline can be used for anything, it's basically a basic P&L. So, but like you were saying, like running your numbers before you get going is key. And just thinking through what it is that you're trying to do. So I think we've covered that pretty well.
Yeah, me too.
Can I throw in
I really
also,
don't-
as
Yeah, go
we're
ahead.
working on our budget also, there are certain ways to cut corners, which is something that we were all talking about the other day, and to save to, when you explain to people what, especially vendors, what you're doing and all, and we're a 501c3, and people do give breaks when they know that you're a charity, you're doing fundraising. So it's always important to ask people, for that break or whatever, and it really makes a difference. For example,
Yeah.
the first year I found a florist who is an event planner, and she was really excited about using our Syngap colors in a floral arrangement. And she gave us the arrangements for her cost just for the flowers, which was amazing. Delivered them too, everything. So there are people out there who really like to help, especially when they hear how you are trying to make a difference.
Mhm.
Yes.
What do you guys think about like donor relationships? That's actually kind of important, I feel like. How do you build them? I mean, with the bigger donors.
I
don't
guess
know.
I can start I'll just say quickly that I think it's important to establish relationships with people, start with the people the friends, the people who are in the Syngap community, your own personal network also. And
Mhm.
when if anybody donates, you need to write thank you notes. You need to reach out to them and show your appreciation, your gratitude, because we are so thankful for their donations or sponsorships or whatever. So I think it's really important to have the communication going both ways, keep in touch, and like really reach out. And hearing that, Julie, how she reaches out to people, and Suzanne has a technique of some kind here that she does it amazing too.
Yeah.
Well, I think here in Atlanta, I tend to, when I was first getting going, I literally researched what are the Fortune 500 and 1,000 companies in Atlanta. Now, let me be clear. I reached out to probably 30 big companies my first year, and I think I got 28 no's and 2 non-responses. But what I learned from that is I need to go for a smaller tier company. Coca-Cola, it turns out, is a little busy for me. But what was neat is also sort of, in terms of donors, when you move from individuals to companies, like a lot of people I know are running companies, or heavily involved in companies, and care about either me or Syngap. And so the ability to be a corporate sponsor is higher for a lot of people than to be an individual sponsor. So I had plenty of friends whose names aren't on my sponsor list, but instead their companies are, or Syngap family companies are. And so and I've just, you just continue to collect and note, who those people are. And, it's grassroots. And you do as well as you can, and you build on that the next year. But there's a lot of time spent in reaching out to donors, in particular, higher level corporate donors. But like Nancy said, you spend the time and then you write a lot of thank yous. And I did both computerized and handwritten.
And there's a lot to be said too, I think, about our small donors. And we always say every dollar counts, but really it adds up, because we sell bike tickets for an electric bike, and they're $10. The cost of the bike is $1,200 or $1,300. And last year and already this year, we've exceeded just the cost of the bike. And those are only $10. And so we have a lot of people that just buy one ticket, some buy 10 tickets, but all that adds up. And before you know it, you've already raised $1,000. And so while these big corporate sponsors are very important, our little guys are too. And so we and our whole sponsorships are $100. But we usually have 2 signs at every hole, and that's 18 holes. So you can do the math. It really adds up. So
And on
Joint
that,
aid, you know.
yeah, well, on that note, I was just going to add, you know, that they're different, and Nancy touched on this a bit as well. There are different ways you can get different people to sponsor. And you just sort of made me think about the fact that for my last event, I ended up getting Tito's vodka to provide a corporate sponsorship. So I made these cute little 4x4 cards that I put in pretty little piece of plastic on my bar, every single one of my bars, and said, you know, vodka provided by Tito's with their logo on it. They were thrilled. I was thrilled. I know, I think Julie's gotten some sponsorships from places like that and places like Quick Trip. So we have no problem, you know, saying the dessert table was given to us by Quick Trip and having it completely, shot sheet out and Quick Trip stuff. I'm happy to give away coasters that say Quick Trip. We'll do all, I mean, so there's a lot of different ways to skin a cat, and you know, your brain starts going in terms of the different options there. But there are different ways that you can get different people involved at different levels.
People want to know what they're going to get out of a donation or sponsorship. So we do all put together like a tier sheet of some kind to show them this is what you're going to get if you sponsor, donate. And that makes it easier too when you approach them. But I think when people know that they're getting something in return, even if it's advertising, social media or whatever, their name on a table, whatever, people then will donate because they like that. They like their name to be seen.
Well, and companies who are doing financial contributions or material contributions, I mean, generally speaking, tithe in some way, shape, or form in the calendar year. So, you know, giving us a donation is part of their corporate responsibility, like in all likelihood. So us asking them is uncomfortable, but they're giving away their money. So why not give it to SRF?
Right.
I like that.
Yeah, because
That's what I tell myself when I walk in a store.
yeah, and sometimes what they're giving, like we've given a team and they've given us like Chick-fil-A feeds all of our golfers. It's feeding our golfers breakfast this year. Well, what they're giving us, so we gave them a team, but what they're giving us, I mean, you may have to give a little bit back, but how awesome is that? You know, that's an expense that now we don't have to cover. They were already going to give that donation probably anyways. Our golfers are happy. They're happy now because now they get to put a team in our tournament. And then that opens the door for next year. They might do a sponsorship. So, you know, you never know. I mean, I didn't think Chick-fil-A would give what they've given us, but just that all you have to do is just ask. You just never know what you might get.
And then one last point on the donors before we belabored it. Just in terms of when you are at your event, and different events have different types. So I don't know, for example, I know we've got a trivia night coming up soon. I don't know if any of the Syngap parents are going to stand up and speak or not, but at the bigger events like Nancy's and mine, where you are having speakers, it is very clear to me that what people want to learn about and hear about is our children. So the Syngap movies, or, you know, Ashley Fry stood up and talked about, you know, her story for us, me last year. When Mike stood up at my event a few years ago, he, you know, brought up all these different pictures of children, but just sharing the journey we've been on, it feels redundant to me because I feel like I've told everybody and their brother all about my family. But everybody in the room doesn't know the struggles that we faced, and they haven't seen, like last year we featured Melissa Foster's family's video. Nancy's featured a video on Karen. We had a video on my daughter one year. And it depends on what kind of event you're having, if you have people captured in chairs or not. But pulling at people's heartstrings is what also brings in the money, because you're showing them, this isn't just me telling you about some random fundraiser for a group called SRF. This is me telling you about children who are suffering, one of whom is mine. So that's just something to keep in mind.
Even if you choose to start small, telling your story, just like Suzanne was saying, online, you can start as a birthday fundraiser. You know, here is my child, this is my story and everything. I think people, when they hear that, genuinely will jump in and start to help out. But I think starting small, it can be good. It depends on what you're interested in. You can really, it's in the palm of your hands to choose how you want to fundraise, really.
Awesome. Our little last section, just really, and then we can get to probably questions, was leveraging technology. And I think technology, SRF can help provide quite a lot, like if you have ticketing or if you have a fundraising page you need to put up, we're here completely for that. I mean, you want to talk about what we've used? We give Lively for our, online fundraisers, but I know Nancy and Suzanne are using Give Smart, which if you want to say what it does, I mean, it's
I can
nice,
actually
and we have it. Yeah.
I can start with that. Suzanne and I and Julie, we looked through so many different platforms, what to use. We've tried different ones,
Right.
but we found, actually Suzanne found Give Smart, and it has been amazing. It makes having a fundraiser so much easier. People buy their tickets, and we do have other platforms also, but the nice thing is that we have the silent auction. If you have a raffle, if you have a 50-50, if you have a paddle raise, or if you do anything, all these capabilities are within this platform, and it's really great. And it's all people use their phones, and
Yeah.
it runs seamlessly. So it's a great situation that we have access to that for anyone who's interested.
And
Yeah.
we it takes a little like investment on the back end from SRF, but it's worth it. So I know there's people from other orgs here probably wondering about that. So we end up, pay for the platform for the year, and then we're able to let the fundraisers use it, which is
But we
good.
did a lot of research in terms of the cost of this
Fair.
platform against other platforms, and it's very
Yeah.
well priced for what it does. So, every platform has
Yeah.
pros and cons, but for what we're getting out of this, I think it's been a good investment.
Me too. Well, social media were our hot topic. We use that a lot. Julie's amazing at it. All you guys are, but Julie's is particularly nice. She's on
Well, I
top
had a
of it.
lot
What
of
do you
help.
use? Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, I've had a lot of help, but I will say we use Facebook and Instagram, and then I use my personal LinkedIn page to post things about our event. But I feel like here we are in 2024, like most people are not most, I'd say half of our golfers or donors are finding out about our event through social media. It's really, really critical, especially for an event like ours, because we don't send out individual invitations. We just do a lot of social media posts, stories. I have a platform that I use that helps me plan out my posts for the week, especially as we get closer. I'll start posting more several times a week to just have that a very big presence on social media. I had somebody message me just the other day and ask me if our teams were full, and I don't know this individual. And so that was really neat to get that message. Apparently he had played 2 years ago and saw our post and asked if we were full yet and wants to put a team together. So that was really special he saw it on social media and he remembered playing and reached out. So, and we at SRF, we have Canva that we can help you create anything that you need for your event. And then I know Nancy and Suzanne have, their tiles that they've used. And then we have the stuff that we've used for the golf scramble that can all be edited. We've shared some of our stuff with another family that's done a scramble in Canada. We just took out, the location, the date and all that, and it's worked really well for them. So we're here to help with that stuff, but a big social media presence for your event. If you're having one that's, at a location and you need some of that stuff, we're here to help.
For sure.
Yeah, I feel like in building out your timeline, I also built out a sort of a marketing and social media plan, and decided how many individual emails I wanted to send over the course of my time frame, and what the focus of each of those would be, and then also built out tiles for social media. And I know Julie uses Planoly to get those built out, or I guess published, which I think is cool. I never had that. I just have mine in Canva. And then Canva, like she mentioned, is sort of a design tool that Jessica can help people with. And we have the templates already. So I think having a strategy for marketing on your own is important. And then also interfacing with Ed, who Gabler, who is our director of communications and marketing. And he, of course, is great. And he will get in touch with anybody who's doing something because he wants to also help promote it from SRF's platform.
Yeah. That's a good point.
Good.
Cool.
And I'm probably not the best with social media, but I have learned and I get lots of help. I have someone help me make the tiles because I'm not the most creative and I don't know how to use all those things. But I had someone volunteer and help make the tiles, which is amazing. Another Syngap family's child volunteered to do that, which was great. And then I can share those tiles. When we speak of tiles, we're speaking of our little advertisement and kind of like a square that we can put up on social media. And once those are made, then and I make the timeline kind of thing, and they get sent out, and they get Ed is great about sending it out also with SRF so that it's all over all of our sites.
Yeah, like, and I think for all of this, I think we're moving into the Q&A, and I saw a question earlier about, so how much support does SRF provide? SRF provides as much as we can, given that we are a lean volunteer organization. I think you've got Jessica in the role in the fundraising group, doing what she can to help provide support. But when it comes to selecting the type of event and the location for the event and your locale, that is not something SRF is equipped to handle because we are all remote. But when it comes to providing templates and guides, we have all of that. We're in the process of building it out more. But let me be clear, Nancy and I have traded back and forth when it comes to our letters to donors, our letters to sponsors. We have all gone back and forth on our tiers in terms of sponsorships. So Jessica is doing what she can to pull all of that into a Google Drive for everybody else to use. And the same is true for budgets and what have you. So, and in terms of goal setting, I mean, again, the fundraising group, and I'm the board liaison to the fundraising group. We will do what we can to help set any sort of goals you'd like. But like we've mentioned before, the key for fundraising is making sure that you feel comfortable that you will be able to cover your costs with your whatever sort of sales you're having, tickets or sponsorships or what have you. So we are a small volunteer-run organization, and we're happy to have anybody help in the resource mobilization group. Little plug. Jessica and I want to help. This is my other hat. But we are lean, but we're doing what we can to help support people, and we do really want people to maintain the clean and clear marketing message of SRF in terms of our mission and our colors and all that kind of stuff. So just wanted to cover that question. What else do we have?
Thank you. Sure. I like Catherine's. Do you see an online fundraiser as important as a first step towards a large event, like starting online? Is the contact list that is the most important ingredient to start with? The contact list?
Since I think I mentioned that, I'll take that. So my quick and dirty answer is I don't think it's a required first step. I think the key ingredient is how driven you are and how much you're willing to bite off. The same contact list I had, like I said, for my online fundraiser was being the one that I used again. But let me be clear, I still contacted all the people who said no. They didn't get to drop off of it. And there was certainly breakage from people who donated money my first year. They're like, oh, yay, they finally found an answer to the next year when they're like, oh, whatever, we don't live in Atlanta. We're not interested. So there was breakage. It's not a requirement. I think the question is how much effort are you going to put into this? How big a list are you willing to come up with? And then you just go with it.
How do you make sure you're not competing against another fundraiser or oversaturating a city? That's actually a pretty good question. I mean, some of us live in smaller cities than others. I probably has to do with the network, your own network, I would
True,
think,
true.
hitting up.
And I
Yeah.
would say in my case, I do have a network where I'm in the downtown Atlanta. There are a lot of events here. So I very much made sure that the other key giant ones I knew about, that happen, that a lot of my friends go to. I've made sure not to be within a week or two of those. And, but at the same time, I also knew in my case, I wanted it to be, for example, in sometime between August and October. And that ended up morphing a bit when I was working through, well, where do I want it to be? And then how much can I get done in this time frame? And so tweak it a little bit based on that. I don't think, I mean, in terms of saturation, people have different motivations to go to different fundraisers. And I've seen people go to fundraisers just because it's a fun place to go. I've seen people go because they're passionate about whatever the cause is, like Syngap. I've seen people go as guests and then really get interested and involved and or donate. So I think as long as you're sure you're not crossing over with your peer group in terms of something big for ALS or here for cystic fibrosis, and we have a lot of other fundraisers here for children in need in Atlanta, as long as you're not crossing over with that, in terms of the same weekend, you just have to try and figure out what works for you time-wise.
This also reminds me of one year Julie and I scheduled the same day. It was because it was really the only way we can get both facilities. So we had two Syngap larger fundraisers on the same exact day, which we tried not to do in other years, but it actually worked out fine. It worked
I
out well.
remember that. That was
Still both
stressful.
had great attendance. Some people had to choose which one they were going to. That's fine. But it worked out fine.
That's good.
We do have a calendar also. So we have a calendar. SRF has a calendar of for the year of all their events. So if you wanted to look at the SRF calendar and say, well, maybe I want to do a fundraiser when one is not going on so that I can get people to attend from this community, that might be a good idea.
Yeah. It probably, like you said, depends when you can get venues and all that too. It's just hard. What's the hardest thing? We have one more question, but I wanted to just ask. I thought it was like, what's the hardest thing when you guys have events? Like, do you think, how do you handle your stress? Because sometimes y'all seem kind of a little stressed or a little on oh my God, it's happening in a month.
I
go
can
ahead.
answer that. From the first time I ever did this, I thought I was going to be so panicky, especially speaking in front of people and standing up in front of people. But there's something about our community, and when people come to these events, they're so happy to be there because these people are there because they want to make a difference. So when I looked out in the audience and I saw the smiles on people, I'm like, oh, wow, I can just talk because I know they all really want to be here. They're all happy. They want to make a difference. So with that, I was able to speak from my heart and from my passion about what this is all about. And it just made it really, really easy knowing that people who go to these events, they want to be there.
I love it.
And I would say a timeline of your, I start with a very detailed timeline on Thursday, Friday, and then Saturday down to the hour. And I print it out and I carry it with me, but that staying organized just helps tremendously. And that is really over the top organization for me, but it helps stay on track. So I don't forget something. I mean, I always forget something, but I stay pretty organized. And it just helps the day go by so much smoother. And other people also have a copy of that. And my volunteers now going in third year, they already really know because they keep coming back because they love it. And so they already know the expectations and they kind of know how the day flows. And that really helps too. Again, like I said, leaning into your people that will help you your head on straight. So add that.
And I would say for me, what's hardest is, y'all are all going to laugh, but being willing to move on from trying to generate attendees and donors and sponsors. And at some point in the planning process, you have to move from that to finishing organizing the actual event details. And that's been really hard for me because I just want to call everybody again. I want to reach out to more possible donors. I want to write one more sponsorship request.
Right.
And it's hard for me to cut that off because I mean, I've said this before, I want the world. And it's really hard to just say, okay, we've gotten enough. Now we got to do the event. And it's also hard because a lot of people wait to end up sponsoring. And I mean, people at the very end, I sold so many tickets and, you know, I waited and waited and waited. You know, you want to make as much money as you can. And this is my baby and it's about my baby girl. And so it's hard. You got to try and let go a little. I've done such a great job. Can't you tell? But you have to build a bit of a wall for yourself and just say, everybody cares.
Yeah.
Everybody's giving as much as they can. Everybody has their own problems and priorities. It's going to be a beautiful night. It always is, or event or whatever it is you come around to. But for me, it has been very hard to put aside my desperate desire to get as many people involved and then just move on to let's have a rock star event.
Right.
I'm working on it, obviously, still.
Guys are amazing. Okay. The last question, I don't know kind of how to answer this, but you guys might be able to. It's,
I have
how do
some
you
thoughts.
keep it going? Yeah, go ahead. Let me read it, and then this is not a terminal illness, which is true, I guess. So some feedback is, why should we keep donating if they already have, or we can only give so much as a family member? But
so
a
I
tough one.
feel
Yeah.
like, I feel like that is a fabulous question. And it is one I have struggled with when I've gone back to the same well year after year. And I've had family members say to me, are you really going to call us again next year? I'm like, I sure am. And if you could please just give as much as you see possible, that'd be lovely. To me, the key messaging there, well, first of all, like I said a minute ago, you have to try really hard not to take it personally when people are saying we can only give so much. And you know, be whatever you think about that, that's their opinion. So you just thank you very much. But second of all, I think what I've tried my hard to do, which is not easy with Syngap, with each of the different times I have solicited people, to tell them a story about where the money has gone from the past. So my very first online fundraiser, I was able to tell people I am raising money for the Rare Base repurposed drug screen. A year later, I was able to tell them, thank you all for the money I raised for Rare Base. We now have targeted, I think it was, 27 drugs that we're now trying to take into another screen. This year, when I do thinking about, like I mentioned, an online fundraiser, I want to say, you know, we actually now have 4 repurposed drugs that are being considered by different families. And at the same time, we are trying to build out our clinical network. We have CHOP, or the END program, up in Philadelphia. We've just announced Colorado Children's. We're looking into Stanford. Building out a clinical network for our families costs bukus of money. And so I will next be raising for that. A year from now, I would like to be able to say we have 3 centers of excellence. We had 0 when my daughter was diagnosed. And I'm floating around Atlanta, one of the biggest cities around, with no doctor who knows about Syngap or cares about Syngap. So there's a story and a trajectory. And unfortunately, no, we can't say we cured cystic fibrosis and here's a breathing treatment that you paid for. It's not that simple in our case, but we can wrap a story around the money. And I do think that's really important. I think that was a great question.
And for me, Karen is my sister who has Syngap. She just turned 68 years old. So we know that our children are going to live a long time, and they deserve better. They deserve these treatments. We are, you know, as you just heard from Suzanne, we're so close to so many different things, and we are involved now in clinical trials. So the progression, especially for the people that have come back every year at the gala, we talk about the first year, this is where we were at, and now look where we are. And Pavel comes and he does a spreadsheet and shows everyone, which is just amazing, so that we can see, look, we started, and the first year, I think we had close to raised over the whole organization, 1.2 million or something like that. And now we're at over 6. So it's just, and where this money's going and how we're helping. This year, we're planning on doing a few little videos from some of the children who've been taking some of these clinical trials and how it's helped them. So that people can really see that their money that they're donating is making a difference, especially even from like 3 years ago.
Good. Awesome. Okay. I don't think there's any more questions, but if anybody has any, please feel free. Let me check Facebook real fast. I don't see any. A couple people said hi. Hi Zoe. From Viata. I think we're good then. I don't know if anybody has anything they want to send out, leave with. Otherwise.
I would just say thank you to everybody for being interested in trying to figure out how they can help fundraise. I think we have a really strong community, and I think we're really lucky that being 400 strong in the US, how much interest there is in Syngap. And I think that has a lot to do with the fact that we have such a strong community, but we hands down need everybody to dig in and help fundraise, because we're not going to keep progressing without money.
And
So,
find your
helps.
passion. Find your
Yeah.
passion, what you're interested in. We have a family her son is painting and she frames the paintings and she's selling them $50, $100 each. That's her way of giving back. So there's just so many different ways that you can fundraise. Find what you really enjoy doing.
Cool. All right. Thank you guys so much for, spending all this time today doing this.
Thank
Appreciate
y'all.
it.
Thank you.
Thank
And
you.
everything you do. All right. Have a good one. Bye.
Bye.